Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Well, hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Ultra. Today we're going to be in Romans chapter 1 through Romans chapter 5, and in those episodes, if you would, leave a link or something in the description about what you got, you'll enter into a chance to win these Apple AirPod 4s. And hey, look, I really do hope you win them. But what we also want to do is we want to give a movie quote. So today, maybe you've already picked up on one of the movie quotes that I gave earlier. I'm going to give a couple more movie quotes as the entire book of Romans goes on. And if you pick up on any of the movie quotes, leave them in the description box, and that will also enter you into a chance to win the Apple AirPod Pros. But I have with me today a Roman calendar. It's not just a Roman calendar. I actually picked this up at the Ark in Kentucky. We went there as a group the other day, and when I was there, they had this. It's massive. I mean, this thing is huge. It's pages of pages of pages of world history. It's actually, if you was to get this and just spread it out, it would be over 40 feet in length of nothing but just calendars. It's like micro print of a calendar of world history. So you see things like the beginning of creation. You see things like the flood that happened in the Bible, the prophets, and Jesus. But today, since we're in Romans 1 through 5, I actually want to key in on the Roman Empire. So this map shows a lot of things dates of when things would have happened. Major events like when Mount Vesuvius exploded and it actually destroyed two of the major cities in Rome. It actually shows events like when they created boats and ships and would be able to be more have like a better navy. The Roman Empire did when they created the Roman road. So they say all road leads to Rome. It talks about when they would do that. It also says when they would create these coins with different leaders or rulers on their head. When different leaders would actually rule, and some, like right here, you can see when different leaders would be assassinated by people who were the closest to them. It gives a lot of history about what happened in the Roman era. In fact, it actually says one of the craziest things, maybe you didn't know this, but because the Christians in this day would have the Lord's Supper, they actually thought that the Christians were, what I guess you call it, what's it called when you eat other people? Gosh, I can't think of that word. But whenever you eat other people, that's what they thought that Christians were. Because in the Lord's Supper, we believe that it's a representation of Christ's body and Christ's blood. Well, back in that day, they were like, no, they're actually eating people's blood, drinking people's blood, and eating people's skin. That's really what they're doing. So they thought they were all just people eaters. And because of that, many would be like, on God, I will never be hungry again. And so anyways, all these things would happen and were happening in that day. Gosh, I'm trying to think of that word. I cannot think of that word for nothing. When you eat a carnivore? No, that's not it. I don't know. Well, they were that. But what we see also is what I want to call your attention to today is this little piece at the very bottom of our picture here, and it's the Roman Colosseum. This is when the gladiators would have been popular, and about the time that King Nero took office, he would have Christians put on trial, put in the gladiator. They would have actually had some of them would be quartered, some of them would be lit on fire to light his gardens. They were tortured. Christians in this day were absolutely brutally killed. But a lot of them would go as a spectator sport to the gladiator games, and they would be hunted by lions or bears or wolves or whatever they had, even cheetahs. They would be attacked, and they would try to survive, and eventually the lions and the bears or whatever, it would get them. And to the point where they would be like, hey, I don't have any more legs, Lieutenant Diane. And I say all of that to say Romans chapter 1. Now remember, we're in Romans chapter 1 through 5. We're talking about the gladiators. We're talking about all the things that they went through. Romans chapter 1 verse 16 says this: For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, for it is the power within me. the power within me. So I will not be ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Why? Because that is the power that is within me. So my question to you is, do you have the unashamed faith like these guys here did? Are you as unashamed as they were? Would you be willing to go to your death, to be put on trial, to be torn limb from limb, or even to go to the gladiators, to go to the Roman Colosseum, knowing that you're going to face death? Why? Because you did not deny your faith in Jesus Christ. If somebody at your office was to come up with a gun and say, hey, if you believe in Jesus, I'm going to kill you, what would you say? Would you say, yes, I'm a Christian and go meet Jesus, or would you say no and save your life? I don't know your answer, but I do know that Jesus has called us. He's called you to live an unashamed life from the time that you wake up to the time that you put your head on the pillow at night, to be unashamed in your daily walk. And if you're anything like me, it can be easy to be faithful, to be very bold in your faith in church. But when it gets to the real world and around people that you don't see at church all the time, maybe we can shrink back from that. Maybe we can feel a little bit more ashamed when it comes to sharing our faith and sharing the gospel, inviting somebody to church that may not go as much. We can tend to be, if you're anything like me, more ashamed in those situations. Maybe not even ashamed, but a little bit uncomfortable. So can we push past that? Why? Because it is the power of the gospel, Paul says in Romans 1:16, that is working in us. It's the power of the gospel that's working in you, and He's called you today to be unashamed. Well, look, that's all we have for today. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. And I want to encourage you that if you're in Romans chapter 5 through 6, like we're going to be in tomorrow, don't just watch the videos. I so appreciate you watching these videos. I really do. But more importantly is to dive into God's Word and read God's Word. So I encourage everybody to open up their Bible and begin to highlight or circle or underline something that really stands out to you and bring things out of the passage. Look, if you're listening to it, that's awesome. But let me give you a challenge. I challenge you tonight when you get home or when you wake up in the morning, hey, get a Bible out. I'm talking about a real, not a digital one, a real Bible, pages and a marker, and just begin to read and highlight it. And I think it will bring the words off the page and really soak into your life. That's my challenge. Don't forget Romans 6 through 10 tomorrow. And until then, I'll see y'all next time. Peace.